manufacturers to use laminated safety glass in construction. So not everybody knows what that means, what it is. The windshield in your vehicle is laminated safety glass. What happens when a rock comes off a big truck and pulverizes the windshield? Stays there to protect you. Now, if the manufacturer, at the manufacturing level, was to have safety glass in the side windows of that van, when we talk about this dynamic of the vehicle rolling, all the passengers, all their extremities stay with them. They don't, there's no ejection possibility. So, if you had the safety glass, the vans and people would stay inside and reduce the ejection deaths, and that's a really big thing with these vans. Industry opposition has succeeded in keeping up the requirement for the safety glass component out of van construction. And why would that be? Well, it always comes back to that shiny copper painting. When you're at a manufacturing level, they look for a way to polish that penny. To split it into 600 pieces still resemble a penny. So there has to be some shortcomings. And as you know, like many years ago, back in the 60s and the 70s, when Ford Motor Company had the Pinto, they could have fixed that for a few cents on the dollar. They didn't. They chose to see what the litigation would bring forward. Horrendous things happened. And eventually they stopped producing that car. My main focus was not to come here and scare the Jesus out of you, but I'll tell you, these are facts that I really want you to think about. Now, when you do the comparison between this nice shiny yellow school bus and the vans do not have as many emergency exits as school buses. And on school buses, the rear door of the van is typically blocked by the rear seat. So if the van was to go over into the ditch and up against a tree or a stump, how do you get all those passengers out quickly in the event of a fire? It doesn't happen. School buses have emergency escapes along the side, sometimes 3, 4 of them, and on the roof, maybe 1 or 2, and out the back. And then the seat spacing in school buses is an aisle, front to back. It is against the law in most provinces to block the aisle in a school bus. Why would it be okay to block the aisle in a van with a seat? So, emergency signaling. Unlike school buses, the vans are not equipped with flashing lights or stop arms to control traffic safety when they're stopped or loaded to pick up or disembark passengers. Go back a little bit to the commercial driver's license. In British Columbia, a Class 4 driver's license is all required to drive this van. And it can, as I said, it can be obtained by anyone over the age of 19 who completes their written examination followed by a road test. And it doesn't have to be in this van. It's so sad. Most of us, when we took our driver's license test, we had to drive it in. If you were operating a standard shift car or an automatic, you had to drive that vehicle. Who would have thought that that would have been okay? I certainly don't. In BC, no specialized training required in order to operate the van. So a little bit of an overview. This is in the United States. So to show you that even in the best systems, not everything works perfectly. Nevertheless, conditions have changed little since the 1999 Transportation Safety Board reported this lament. While most states require that children can only be transported to and from school in buses meeting federal school bus crashworthiness standards. And I've been fortunate. I've been to school bus factories in several different manufacturing and seen how they make them. And they're well built. They're meant to support the weight of the vehicle and protect the passengers. So some states either allow or do not prohibit the use of non-conforming buses for school-related activities, Head Start programs, child care facilities, and for higher transport rentals, despite federal guidelines to the contrary. When states and various school systems allow children to be transported in vehicles not meeting the federal school bus construction standards, the federal intent of protecting children is undermined. So you say, what's happening with Transport Canada? What is their mandate? Their mandate, in my eyes, is to make sure that all vehicles that are on the road are set up and they're there to protect the passengers and the road, people around on the road area. So in 2001, Transport Canada studied heavily loaded passenger van rollover collisions in Canada. That was 9 years ago. We are long overdue for this van safety study, especially with all the recent publicity and fatality accidents that have taken place since World War I. So, as I said, in Canada, only 3 provinces has banned the use of the vans: Quebec, New Brunswick, and Nova Scotia. So, CanWest News did an investigation in September 2009 by Richard Foote. He revealed that no province, except for New Brunswick, has made significant changes to the way children travel to off-site school events following the tragic crash in 2008 in Bathurst, New Brunswick, that killed the 7 high school basketball players. In May 2009, the provincial coroner's inquest into the accident revealed serious safety flaws with the way children travel to extracurricular school events, and a recommendation of series of changes by provincial governments across the country. The changes called for a coroner's inquest are being largely ignored across Canada. None of the major safety recommendations have been adopted by the federal government or any of its provinces. You say, how can that be? Why wouldn't they? Well, I was fortunate to spend some time in Vancouver in November at the farm workers inquest, where the 3 farm workers died in a 15-passenger van in the Abbotsford Sumas area. And when I talk about textbook situations, the van that they were in experienced the exact problem that all these vans are famous for. At highway speed, a slight maneuver, the driver loses control. The driver of this vehicle, and there was a few attributing factors. The driver had never driven it before. Fine and dandy. They had 17 people in the van. Okay, so we had more weight than the vehicle was capable of. There were some tire issues. The 2 front tires were similar to the Bathurst van, 4 millimeters of tread remaining on the front. Why would that make a big difference? Well, on certain road conditions, the condition of the tire makes a big difference, as you saw in the video before this, about handling characteristics. So, the scenario with the farm workers van had just been motor vehicle inspected like a week prior by a friend of the owner. Okay, that kind of leaves something here, doesn't it? What could happen there? So, the farm worker's van's going down the road, the driver starts to lose control, starts to oversteer, gets it back and realizes that she is going over an overpass. There's a very short metal guardrail there, a round tubular guardrail. She sees the traffic going down below, beside her on her right side. She gets a little bit excited. She turns it the other way. Just as she's done that, of course the driver typically starts to slow down when they get nervous. A gravel truck and trailer were going beside her at a higher rate of speed. The van, as she corrected, went back, and the fender on the gravel truck, on the pup, which is the trailer, caught the front corner of the van. The driver of the truck was going much faster, so what do you think happened? The van started to spin. As the van started to spin, the van started to lift up, and it rolled over, and it went right on top of the guardrail. 3 passengers of the van were ejected, because the van was literally busted open. The seats that were in the van didn't all stay in the van. That's no surprise either. There was one small saving grace, though. Because the fellow who did the inspection was, in my eyes, totally incompetent, not realizing the solid wooden seat isn't a safe seat to have in a vehicle, it kept the roof from crushing the remaining occupants. Because, as I said earlier, there's no roof support in these vans, as there is in something of that caliber there. So that's an awful journey to take you on.